The world premiere for Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 has already taken place, and the film is due to be released on May 5th, which is about a week away from the time of making this video. It's been a bit of a mixed bag for the MCU since Endgame, and I think that's actually being generous. The TV series were mostly not great to pretty poor, and the films in Phase 4 were mostly underwhelming. Black Widow was a big disappointment as the final farewell for the much-beloved Natasha Romanoff. Something about the tone of that film I really didn't like. I didn't connect with the story, I didn't believe the villain, I wasn't engaged by the characters, and to make that film after the death of the main character was a really odd choice to me. Scarlett Johansson should have had her Black Widow film about 10 years prior. Both Shang-Chi, The Legend of the Ten Rings, and Eternals failed to make the kind of impact that they were no doubt expected to. Spider-Man No Way Home was a welcome return to form, despite the fact that I think Far From Home has a better villain and overall story. No Way Home is basically a multiverse plot device, a problem created by the main character of Peter Parker, and he spends the film trying to fix it. Insert crossovers from villains and other Spider-Men from previous Spider-Man film iterations, and you have a film that is driven by contrivance and gimmick. But it does work very well. The character moments are great, Tom Holland is excellent as always, it's wonderful to see Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire back. The film delivers, no doubt, but it would turn out to be the only real high point for Phase 4. I'm probably in the minority here, but I wasn't a big fan of the first Doctor Strange film. The character is written very well, and Benedict Cumberbatch's performance is absolutely brilliant. Those are the highlights for me, because the story felt mid-range, and it's very CG heavy. Multiverse of Madness again obviously plays on the current multiverse trend in comic book films, and it provides more excuses for spectacular action set pieces and amazing visual effects, albeit all too often at the expense of story. Thor Love and Thunder continued the comedic direction of Ragnarok. Quips, gags, and cheap laughs seem to be the order of the day. Nothing seems to be taken all that seriously anymore. And so the threat, the conflict and challenges that our heroes are supposed to face, it never feels serious or worth caring about. There's a feeling of jadedness about these kinds of films now, a real sense of irony in them. And after the high-stakes and earth-shattering events of Endgame, the MCU has, on occasion, descended into what feels like almost self-parody. The Thor movies illustrate that quite clearly. And then there was Black Panther Wakanda Forever. As you know, tragically, Chadwick Boseman died before he could film this movie, but instead of recasting the character of T'Challa, or even using CGI to allow the character to die heroically, they just killed him off screen, of a virus or something, and then made the new Black Panther the character's sister. The film is long, meandering, utterly dull, and much like the rest of Phase 4, it feels stuck in third gear in terms of impact. It was all very unimaginative and derivative. Phase 5 got off to the worst possible start with the atrocious Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, a film I've spoken enough about at this stage, and it was the first real box office failure for the franchise. In just 1 week, it's time for the final Guardians of the Galaxy film. To me, this film looks like it could be the high point of Phase 5. Because if you look at the roadmap ahead for Phase 5, you've got the Marvels. Who wants to see that? Seriously, it looks like a bad kids movie. I just can't understand how this was signed off as a feature film. Captain America New World Order could be good, who knows, but Steve Rogers was retired as the character when Chris Evans left, and he probably should have just been recast, like how they're recasting Thaddeus Ross with Harrison Ford, previously played by William Hurt. So the new Captain America is now based on the character of Sam Wilson, played by Anthony Mackie, who obviously portrayed the character of Captain America in the Falcon and the Winter Soldier TV series, which was okay, it wasn't great. So I don't have much hopes for a new Captain America film in that vein. Thunderbolts feels to me like it's going to be a kind of B-team Avengers movie. It's hard to gauge what that could be like. And then finally, Phase 5 will end in the cinema with Blade. There could be some pleasant surprises in there in terms of quality, but I think there's been a kind of downward spiral since Endgame, but more accurately since Spider-Man Far From Home, because I think that film was good. At this point, we've seen almost every permutation of a superhero movie that you can think of in this long-running franchise. But the Guardians of the Galaxy series is different, because they're not really superheroes. They are space action heroes, and so they operate in a different genre to the rest of the franchise. They can do sort of light-hearted science fiction Star Wars-y kind of stories, and it's worked for them very well in their films. But the Guardians of the Galaxy are one of the main pillars of the MCU. They are as significant, impactful, and important as, say, Thor, or Steve Rogers, or Tony Stark. And so they're the last of some of the big players left in the MCU at this point. And one would hope this final Volume 3 movie will give them a big send-off. They certainly deserve it. But I also thought the same for Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, and that turned out to be a massive disappointment. Whether the other films coming later in Phase 5 turn out to be critically and financially successful or not, that remains to be seen. But certainly looking at the list of films in Phase 5, the Guardians of the Galaxy are without doubt the biggest audience draw. And my point in all of this is, if the Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 film ends up being a disappointment for fans and audiences, in a similar manner to Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, if it ends up being a middle-of-the-road movie, and if it doesn't perform well at the box office, I think the MCU will be in serious need of some creative course correction. These films cost a lot of money to make, and since Phase 4, the MCU films that we've gotten, they felt very generic to me, very safe. They're predictable, derivative, and lacking in imagination at this point. They're lacking the sense of intensity, innovation, and originality of the first 3 phases. And this is even putting aside any mention of the woke agenda stuff. The recent films just leave little to no real impact. It's clear, without sounding like a broken record, the franchise needed a serious hiatus after Endgame, or at least after Far From Home, which was a great coda to Phase 3. I don't think they would have ended the whole MCU franchise there, because it was just way too profitable, but certainly 3 to 5 years of a break at least would have been good, and it would have given the fans a chance to miss the franchise for a while. Maybe absence would have made hearts a little fonder, and perhaps interest would have grown over time. My point is, the MCU needs a big win here. I think it really needs this Guardians 3 film to be a big hit, because recent films have not been up to the usual high standard for this franchise, and furthermore, I'm not seeing anything coming down the line in Phase 5 that, in my opinion, could turn things around. So I'll leave it there, and I look forward to your comments on this subject. Finally, if you'd like to support my work, please head on over to Subscribestar. The link is below. It's very much appreciated. And I'm also doing one-to-one subscriber chats if you're interested. Thank you very much for watching, guys. Take care, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.